turn those on. It works better. Welcome back to our video on demand section at WMMBAM.com. Our final candidate interview of the season. We've got property appraiser candidates Dana Blickley and Charlie Sitton in with us. We're going to take about 10 minutes or so, talk about the property appraiser's office, and let you take a look as you're here. Guys, welcome. Thanks again for taking the extra time. Thank you. Appreciate you both being here. I want to get your perspective on the office as it operates now and how it would operate differently under your administration. Dana, let's start with you.
Let's talk about the budget, the plan. That will change dramatically. I've talked about that before in terms of the allocations and the resources and the way that they're applied, the culture of the organization, the transparency issues, the fact that this office historically has not participated in the budget process and made the operations of this office and the resources required to do this job available to the public so they can scrutinize it and they can give us a report card and tell us how they feel about it. So that's going to take place. In terms of the job that we do to discover, list, and value properties, just simply meeting those standards is just not good enough. We need to be exceeding those standards. So I don't want to just be accurate, uniform, and equitable. I want to be the most accurate, the most uniform, the most equitable for all 67 jurisdictions.
All right, Charlie.
Well, the main thing is I want to reallocate the staff. I want to streamline the operation and make it more efficient. I think we can do that and reduce the budget. I think we can return some money back to the taxpayers. I want to make the access to the office, that much more available to the public via the internet, telephone, coming into the office. I also want to work with the cities, the county agencies, where they have their information in a more rapid, available process, where we're more open and accessible, and provide outstanding customer service. I want the property appraiser's office to be the beacon for the way government offices should be run.
What do you see as the biggest failure in the office today as it's operating?
I think it's a lack of communication with the county, the cities, with the taxpayers. I think there's a bit of a distance there. Folks don't feel as involved or interactive with the office as they should be.
Dana, biggest failure right now?
That this office is not acting as a public trust. It is by definition a public trust, and it is not operating as one, and we're going to change that.
All right, very good. Let's talk, and we talked about this on the show just a few minutes ago, but for those who weren't with us then, let's talk about the equipment in the office, whether it's computer systems or other things that are needed to get the job done, and then the vehicles that we've talked about a time or two. It's either a personnel problem, it's a budgetary problem, it's something. Dana, give me your thoughts there.
Well, again, if you drive by the property appraiser's office and there are a fleet of vehicles in the parking lot for a great deal of time during the day, that's inappropriate. So that's either one of two things. We have too many vehicles or we have not enough folks in those vehicles. Either way, that is a poor planning and an expense for taxpayers that is wrong. The second thing is, and one of the biggest issues right now, is the tool that we use to discover, list, and value property. Listen, we have to change with the times, and we always have to be efficient, and we have to do things better, and we have to do it quicker and faster and more accurate. And when you come into the office and you hire some of the brightest and the best, and you sit them down in front of a computer screen that looks like a DOS screen, that's a problem. So our tool is antiquated. It's expensive. It is producing, in some instances, bad data, and we have to change that.
So you're seeing savings eventually if you do that type of thing.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely. I know most of those vehicles have probably been leased, and if they're not being used, then we need to do something to get out of the leases and get out from underneath that expense. But also, once again, I think my plan would be to use those vehicles and get out there and make sure the tax roll is accurate. As far as the CAMA system is concerned, the thing that concerns me, I understand the desire and the want to get an improved and newer system, and everybody would love to do that. My concern is, because I've just went through this at Allstate, where we switched over from a DOS-based system into a web-based system that took 5 years to get completely switched over. And my concern is being at the mercy of a vendor with a CAMA system, where basically every little change and everything you want to do costs you additional money. And I'm concerned that the 5-year or 6-year contract in the long run would be something we just can't afford at this time. I don't know if that's the case for sure, but I would definitely want to go in there and look at that before I bit that apple.
While this job is one of administration and following the law as it exists, what do you see as the most important thing a property appraiser can do that would benefit the taxpayer in Brevard? I'm not saying necessarily reduce tax rates or anything like that. What's the most important benefit that you bring to the table for the voter?
Is that addressed?
Yeah, we'll start with you.
Yeah. Fair and accurate tax roll. Make sure that folks are paying property taxes on what's actually on their property, what it's worth, the condition it's in. Make sure that everything is 100% accurate. Make sure the exemptions that are being applied are the ones that they deserve, and they're not getting exemptions they don't deserve, and they're not missing out on exemptions that they do deserve. So by doing that, that's your service right there. That's the public service of the appraiser's office.
Dana?
Well, again, I go back to discover, list, and value. I mean, that's the primary purpose of the office, and that has to be done correctly. It has to be done efficiently. It has to be done in the sunshine, so the taxpayers can question what they feel might not be appropriate. You certainly have deadlines in which information has to be released. Those are deadlines of the drop dead last date. Certainly, we can provide information quarterly, sometimes daily, sometimes monthly, depending on the type of information, just to make sure that taxpayers have access in a timely manner to information. It's a very short window of opportunity once you receive a trim notice to make sure that your values are correct, to make sure that your exemptions have been applied. So, if we release that information early enough for folks to be able to make that determination, then, that's just a better product for the taxpayer. All
right, very good. Charlie, tell me your thoughts on the Value Adjustment Board and anything that may need changed along those, or anything you could change. I don't know that you can.
Statutes are pretty well set on the way that process is supposed to work. But the thing is, the way you cut down the number of VAB cases is by communicating with the taxpayers and being open and being accessible and letting them review their property and be able to get things fixed before you get to trim time, so that you don't have to go back and in a 3-week period review everything and handle all that stuff and then set up the appeals process and go through all that. You can save a lot of time, effort, and money by getting it right up front.
All right, Dana, Value Adjustment Board.
Yeah, certainly communication. And I've talked about some of these initiatives previously when I was here about having town hall meetings and having town hall meetings in the north central south part of the county on topics that are time appropriate. At the beginning of the year, you're talking to folks about exemptions and what they need to qualify for exemptions or any new exemptions that may be as a result of a change in the law. So folks aren't finding that out after they receive a trim notice. That they're finding that out in the beginning of the year, maybe the last quarter of the previous year. Comes to the budget, maybe the second quarter. You're talking about your budget and the fact that you're going to be presenting your budget to the county commission, and that folks can ask you questions at that time. So definitely communication is the key to make sure that folks have information timely. That's about it with the Value Adjustment Board. The property appraiser has to abide by those rules and the Department of Revenue regulations that regulate that process. Now, having said that, if you feel that there is something wrong with that process, you can certainly be represented both by the association and just as an elected official to let the DOR know or the legislature know when you feel that there's problems with the process.
Staying in that vein, and we've noted this is an administrative job, not a legislative one, if you could change something about the appraisal process or how we handle property taxes in Florida, what would be the change you would advocate for?
Well, certainly the property tax process has become completely difficult for taxpayers to understand, and it is very difficult at a minimum to even put all the information that's required on a trim notice. So when we
you need a 6-foot ballot. Oh, that's this election. Never mind.
No, we already have that bill.
Yeah. Sorry.
We just have to keep in mind that when we're adding layers of exemptions and property classifications to the roll and to taxpayers, and that we change the rules in terms of how those are applied, we make the process much more difficult. So what we have now is a tax bill that's very difficult for folks to actually calculate to determine if it's correct or not.
All right. Charlie Sitton, if you could change it, what would you change?
I think I'd like to roll it back time before the bubble and just erase the bubble. That would make
be nice if we could do that.
Yeah. I mean, if we're going to wax political.
Charlie sits at home and watches Doctor Who on the weekend.
That's right, exactly. Get in the time machine. No, it's just gotten so complicated and it's gotten so convoluted with all these different kinds of exemptions, and some apply to this part of the budget, and some apply to this part of the role. I would like to see it where it's just a little more, value, exemption, taxable value, just that simple. But that's what I'd like to see. It just a lot more simple.
All right, very good. Sadly, we are out of time. Charlie Sitton, if folks want more information about you or your campaign, best way to get it?
CharlieSitton.com.
All right, very good. Dana Blickley?
3 ways to contact me. Personal cell number. It's out there on about 50,000 pieces of information and cards and mailers. It's 321-514-3176. You can certainly contact me on my email, dana@danablickley.com, or you can visit my website, which is danablickley.com.
Very good. Thank you both. Good luck. We will
you.
see what happens on Tuesday. Appreciate your time, and it's good seeing both of you
Thank
again.
you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
We'll see you back here soon. WMMBAM.com, keyword video.